Why do you think that is that those conversations like don't happen? Like you said, a lot of it can be solved if you just put people in a room together. Like, why do you think those things don't happen?
Because people don't want to be wrong, right? Like nobody wants to be wrong these days. Nobody is humble enough to
say,
hey, I messed up. Like nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
That's why they hide behind a screen and they say what they want to say, because they at that moment they think they're right. And no matter what you tell them through a social media post, they can continue to argue with you. But if you talk to them face to face, they don't have time to go look at their little fact checkers or whatever. They don't have time. They have to sit there and really think about it and say to someone, it's not easy to debate someone to their face and try to get heated argument. Nobody likes the confrontation if they're being real. They're afraid of that, and nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Nobody does, and that's one of the biggest problems I see with just people and human nature these days. They're so concerned about being right that they go to these extreme measures. They lie their face off. They do all these crazy things instead of just, if they would just say, hey, I messed up, or hey, let's talk about this. How can we fix this problem? Man, we'd be in a different world. Be a whole different place. We'd be in a different
Flying
place.
Car is already out.
Exactly. Like that's. Yeah. But I think that's why those conversations happen, because people are afraid to admit that they're wrong.
Which is, you think you do well with that?
I think I still struggle with that. I think I've gotten a lot better. I think early on, like that was one of my biggest weaknesses, is like I wanted to be right. You know what I'm saying? And I think everybody goes through a phase. I think everybody deep down has that. Like, okay, I'm gonna fight to the end to prove my point. But I think I've been wrong enough to understand, and I've learned the hard way to admit that I'm wrong when I'm wrong. But like it serves for a lot better conversation. It serves for a lot better problem solving. And I think
relationship. Yeah,
relationship. And that's the biggest thing I think I found with that. Like taking that humble pie and understanding, like, hey, and actually listening. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the biggest thing we also fall short of is that nobody listens. Like they hear, like they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but nobody really listens to what the other person's saying, whether they believe them or not. Yeah. Everybody wants to hear, what they believe, right? You tell somebody what they believe is right, and you point a bunch of points out on why they're right, they're gonna eat that up. Oh, yeah. But you start telling them why they're wrong, nobody listens to that side of it, and I think that's a problem. Like. Yeah. I think you have to intently listen to both sides. And then you got to think, if you really want to prove your theory correct or what you believe correct, you need to be able to find ways to combat the reasons why you're wrong. And if you can find reasons why you're wrong, then your theory can be proven. It's just like any scientific study.
Yeah, so
you know what I'm saying? Like they have data, they have all these things, but you can't prove any theory correct unless you can take all those points.
Test it.
Exactly. It's just you test all those points and experiment. And so I think that's another reason why, that's another issue.
Well, part of communication, and there's a quote that says, well, I don't know who said it, but if as a listener, once you think you have the answer, you stop listening. Yeah. Once you think you know the answer, you stop listening. So that's the problem. Yeah. When you're talking and I get an answer in my mind, I'm no longer listening because I want you to hear my answer.
And that I've seen that happen so many times. Like they already have the answer in their head, so you're trying to explain, like, hey, this is another option, and they're like, no. Yeah. And so instead of, and then the worst is, like, you see a lot of times is when you're trying to pose a different, idea, sometimes they get offended. Like they start getting defensive of their idea when you're not trying to offend them at all. Like you're just trying to, like, hey, this is a valuable, this is a good option. Like this is what we can do. This is another option that we might need to change that up. And then they start like feeling like they're getting attacked or something, and they get defensive. When in reality, it's just like if you sit back and you actually just listen, like, okay, so this is what he is saying or she is saying, why there's a problem with my idea.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so how can I make it not a problem? And I guarantee you'll solve a problem. Yeah.